You've asked me a question, a profound one that sits at the very heart of our human struggle. You say that I speak of a positive state emerging from the negative, and then you ask, how does one negate the I, this, me, without suppressing it, without denying it, or without falling into yet another form of conflict? And then, perhaps more sharply, you ask, who is it that does the negating? This is an extraordinary question, and I'm not going to answer it for you, because a prepackaged answer is just another comfort, another authority to follow, which is precisely the trap we are investigating. Instead, we are going to go into this problem together, you and I, to see if we can discover something true for ourselves, not because I say so, but because we have observed it directly. First, let's look at what we mean by positive action, which is the world we live in almost entirely. Positive action is the assertion of will. I must do this, I will achieve that, this is right and that is wrong. It is the action of conforming to an ideal, following a political course, or subscribing to an ideology that promises a better world tomorrow if only we fight for it today. This is the entire basis of our social, political, and even our so-called spiritual lives. We are told to think positive, a slogan propagated by everyone from television evangelists to modern self-help gurus on social media who promise that you can manifest your desires if you simply assert your will strongly enough. This positive action is all about becoming something you are not. It is the I striving, building, achieving, and accumulating, whether it's accumulating wealth, followers, or virtue. It's the action of the I strengthening itself, building more walls, acquiring more labels. And what do we mean by negative action or negative thinking? We usually think of it as thinking badly of others, as cynicism, or as destruction. But I'm not sure that's what it means at all. Perhaps, as we will explore, all thinking, because it is born of the past, is in itself a negation of the present. But let us put that aside for just a moment. The real question you are asking is this: can this self, this me, which is the very essence of selfishness, this constant self-centered activity, can it be denied? Can it come to an end without introducing suppression, without battling it, without any form of clever evasion or psychological trick? This is the root of it. And I must be clear, I am not sitting here telling you that you must negate the I. How can you? Who is the you that would do the negating? As you rightly ask, who is it that asserts I am so aggressively in the boardroom, and who is it that in a moment of supposed humility says I am not in the church or the temple? Aren't they both born from the same center? The same me playing two different self-serving games? This is the paradox we must unravel. This leads us to a vital inquiry. Look into your own consciousness, this mind that you live with every single day. It is a messy affair, isn't it? It is a vast field of contradictions, aggressive and fearful, filled with beliefs we've inherited and superstitions we have collected, anxieties about the future, momentary pleasures, and deep-seated hurts from the past. This entire field of confusion, conflict, aggression, faith, and fear is our consciousness. Now the question is, Within that vast, messy field, is there one small spot of clarity? Is there some uncorrupted element, some pristine observer, a separate consciousness that is somehow untouched by all the confusion? We desperately want to believe this, don't we? We want to believe there is a higher self or a true soul hiding in there, a director in the control room who can look down at the chaos on the factory floor and say, I will fix this. I will direct the change. I will not suppress, but I will rearrange and clean this whole mess. Do you understand the immense psychological comfort of this idea? It's the belief that a part of you is already saved, already pure, and just needs to be found and given control. If you're truly, terribly honest with yourself, not deceiving yourself with comforting ideas or just repeating a tradition you've been fed, you have to ask if such a clear spot actually exists. This idea of a separate, clear entity is a very, very old story, one of the oldest and most comforting stories humanity has ever told itself. In the Hindu tradition, for example, they speak of the Atman, which can be translated as the self, the soul, or a fragment of the divine, the God within. This Atman is described as being something apart from all the psychological mess, apart from the fear and the conflict. It is described as the eternal witness, the silent watcher that sees all the conflict, all the assertions, all the suffering, and which, through various forms of discipline, assertion, and time, will ultimately free the mind from its confusion. It is the ultimate observer, separate from the observed. And this isn't just an Eastern idea, you have it here in the West as well, perhaps in a different costume. It's the idea of the permanent soul, a singular, continuous entity that is gradually asserting itself through lifetimes or through faith, polishing itself until it is worthy to go to heaven or achieve some permanent state of bliss. Now, I am not here to disparage these traditions, but we must look at the fact these are profoundly comforting utilitarian theories. They are utilitarian because they do something for us. They give us hope. They provide a sense of ultimate security. They make the chaos of existence seem manageable because there is a plan and a permanent I at the center of it. But we must ask, have they worked? You are so practical in your modern world, so concerned with results. Well, what is the result? After millennia of believing in this internal savior, this God within, this separate, clear entity, has it cleared humanity's confusion? Has it ended our conflicts? Has it touched the deep, gnawing agony of our loneliness, our depressions, our anxieties? Look at the world, which is just a projection of ourselves. Look at your own life. It has not succeeded. And when I use that word succeeded, I'm not talking about succeeding in the worldly sense of getting more money, more followers on your social media, or more power. I mean, has it succeeded in bringing about a complete comprehension of life, a total and radical end to psychological conflict? The evidence, if we are honest, is that it has not. The I is stronger than ever, more divisive, more fearful. So, if that entire approach, that whole system of thought built on a separate internal observer, is utterly impractical, which it appears to be, given the state of the world, then why not look at the problem entirely differently? This means we must be willing to do something radical. We must be willing to negate that very idea. We must be willing to question the existence of this God within this permanent soul, this higher self. And I know what that implies. That is going directly against all your most sacred religious traditions, whether it's the Bible, the Upanishads, or the comforting words of a modern guru. It means questioning the very foundation of your psychological security. If you have even the slightest attachment to that idea, whether consciously or deep in the unconscious, you will not be able to look at this differently. You will always be seeking comfort, not truth. But if you are willing to set it aside just for now, then we can begin to inquire. If we set aside the idea of a separate watcher, what is left? What is this self, this I that we want to understand? It is not some mysterious spiritual entity. It is the sum total of all its attributes, its tendencies, its habits, its various idiosyncrasies. It is the bundle of beliefs, the collection of hurts from the past, the scar tissue of memory. It is the conflict in your relationships, the constant chatter of fear, the ache of loneliness, the deep, abiding agony of existence. It is the desperate seeking of some elusive security, security in a job, in a partner, in a nation, in an idea. It is your suffering. It is your name, your form, the face in the mirror, and the entire psychological structure built around it. That, all of it, is the you. Are you willing to see that, or do you doubt it? And you should doubt it. You should doubt everything I am saying. But if you doubt it, you cannot just leave the doubt hanging. Merely to doubt, to say I don't know and walk away, has no meaning. Skepticism has tremendous value, but if you are merely a skeptic all the time, what is the point? It's just another prison, another posture, which is no different from being caught in a comfortable illusion. The skeptic and the believer are two sides of the same coin. So, where there is genuine doubt, there must also be the energy of inquiry. You must examine it. You must look. So let us inquire together this I, this me, this constant separatist activity that we call the individual, which is the very essence of the self. How does one understand it? This is where the original question began, but now we see it in a new light. This I that we are, this separatist activity, this so-called individual, which is the very essence of the self. You have asked how to negate it. And then, in a moment of extraordinary insight, you follow it with the real question. Who is it that negates? You see the trap immediately, don't you? The moment you ask how, you're looking for a method, a system, a new form of practice, which will be wielded by an entity, a doer, a censor. And that censor, that new doer, is just the old I in a new costume, claiming it wants to be humble, claiming it wants to be egoless, but it is still the same self-centered movement, only now it's playing a spiritual game. I wonder if you see that the I that says I must be less selfish is the very essence of selfishness, just projected onto a new goal. So we are not going to fall into that trap. We are not going to talk about negating it at all, because that implies a battle, a suppression, a conflict between one part of you and another. Instead, before we can even ask about ending it, we must first find out what this I, this self centered, egotistic activity is, and we can only find out what it is by seeing what it has done in the world. We must look at its real, actual, daily activity, both outwardly in the world and inwardly in our own consciousness. We must see the reality of it, the actuality of it, not some philosophical or psychological idea of what it has done, but the actual, tangible happening. We must see the mischief it has created. And from that observation, from that clarity, which must be our only criterion, then we can inquire into this I that is acting all the time from its own center. It is not therefore that we are negating the self. We are asking if by observing the truth of the self's activity, that activity comes to an end. This is a very different approach. So, first, what has this I done in the world? I really don't have to answer that question for you because it is blindingly, painfully obvious, isn't it? The I is the movement of separation. It has separated itself into nations. A nation is not just a patch of land, it is a profound psychological division. It is my country, my people, my flag, my way of life. And this identity, which gives the I a sense of belonging and expansion, requires an othered. It requires the foreigner, the rival, the enemy. And in that division, conflict is inevitable. It has brought about thousands of wars, wars that are not just statistics but the organized slaughter of millions of human beings, all justified by the I that has attached itself to a particular piece of geography or a particular ideology. This nationalistic I has created a world where we spend trillions of dollars on weapons of destruction while millions starve, all to protect this psychological boundary, this tribal identity. And what else? This I, in its desperate, constant search for security, has created vast divisions in the form of organized religion. It has said, in this division, in my particular belief, in my particular dogma, in my savior, in my guru, I will be secure, I will be safe, I will know the truth. The I clings to a book, a symbol, a ritual, because it is terrified of uncertainty, terrified of the unknown. And this search for security, which we call faith, has created incredible, brutal divisions. It has created the believer and the non-believer, the saved and the damned. It has fueled crusades, inquisitions, religious wars, and the most appalling cruelties, all in the name of God, all in the name of compassion, all in the name of a love that is in fact just another invention of the I seeking its own permanence. This division doesn't stop at the grand scale of nations and religions. The I has divided itself into communities, into social classes, into political parties, into countless tribes. Look at the world you live in now, a world of echo chambers. You are a Democrat or a Republican, you are on the left or the right, you follow this group on social media or that one. This is the I finding its identity, its security, by conforming to a group, by adopting the group's opinions as its own. This is the modern herd mentality, and it is born from the I's deep-seated fear of standing alone, of being a nobody. It would rather be part of a warring, hateful tribe than face the void of not belonging. And within society, it has created social divisions based on race, on class, on education, all of which are the I asserting its superiority or feeling its inferiority, all of which are forms of violence. And it goes deeper, doesn't it? The original script points out that it divides itself into the family and from the family into the me. We think of the family as a unit of love, but look at what it has become. It has become a fortress. My family against the world. My name, my blood, my property, my children's success. It is the I writ small, the primary cell of psychological separation. This I says I must protect my own, and this becomes the righteous justification for every form of selfishness, accumulation, and aggression against other me's. And finally, at the very center of it all is the me itself, my happiness, my pursuit, my career, my achievement, my aggression. Our entire society is built on this, the glorification of the individual, the personal brand, the drive to be someone. And this pursuit of my success is inherently a state of conflict because my success is measured against your failure. My drive to get to the top means I must compete, I must be aggressive, I must push others aside. It has brought about a world of brutal competition, of deep, abiding loneliness, even when surrounded by people, of envy, and of an anxiety that never, ever ceases. This is the world the I has built. So, where there is division, there must be conflict. This is not a theory, it is a law, like gravity. The I, the me, is the very creator of this division. Therefore, the I is the essence of conflict. Can that I, which has done all this mischief, all these terrible bestial things in the world, creating separate gods, separate nations, endless wars, and endless personal misery, can that I, that entire movement, come to an end? Not by suppression, not by evasion, not by pretending it's something noble. Is this a fact for you? Not for me, not because I'm telling you. Is it an absolute, observable fact to you that the I, the self, is the root of all this division and therefore all this conflict? Or is this just an exaggeration, an interesting concept you are adjusting yourself to? We are so accustomed to thinking that war is cruel, but we don't see that the I, which is us, is that cruelty. We first conceive an idea, war is bad, and then we try to adjust our I to that idea, perhaps by becoming a pacifist, which is just another label, another division. We are not doing that. We are saying, observe what is actually happening in the world and in yourself without bias, without any partiality, and you will see what the so-called individual expansion, the individual aggression, the individual pursuit of success has done. If you are very clear on that point, if you have seen it truly as you would see a fire or a dangerous animal, then we can ask the next question. When you have put that question to yourself with real urgency, seeing the cruelty and bestiality of it all, can this movement, which is the me, ever stop or be radically changed? Then we must face the question, that you so rightly asked. Who is it that is to bring about this change? Who is it that will end this self centered activity? That is what the questioner is saying. And to answer it, we have to go much, much deeper into the very structure of our perception. We have to ask, is there any difference at all between the observer and the thing he observes? Please, just listen to this, not to agree or disagree, but just to consider it. We are asking if there is a difference between the observer and the thing he observes. You may say, oh, you are repeating the old stuff. I have heard this before. You are stuck in a rut. It may seem like a rut, but perhaps it's a rut we have never actually tried to get out of because we have never truly looked at it. Let's look at it simply, not philosophically. When you observe a tree, that living thing outside your window, can you look at it without the word tree instantly coming to your mind? The moment you look, the instant response of the brain is to label. That's a tree, or that's an oak tree, or that's a beautiful tree. Can you look at it without that first immediate label? Because that word tree is the symbol. It is the idea. It is the memory of all the trees you have ever seen, the botanical knowledge you have collected. That word, which is the past, immediately comes between you and the actuality of the thing you are looking at. The word is the observer. The observer is the past, the accumulation of memory and knowledge, looking at the present and immediately capturing it, naming it, and filing it away. Experiment with this. Just for a second or two, as you are listening, look at something around you right now. When you look at it without the word, without the label, you will find it has a completely different quality. The space between you and it disappears. But we are caught, you see, in an immense network of words. I don't know if one ever realizes how completely we live inside this prison of symbols. The word, the symbol, has entirely taken the place of reality. When you use the word my wife or my husband or my child, you have an immediate picture, an image, a complete bundle of memories, don't you? You have the memory of pleasures and hurts, of irritations and comforts, of shared experiences and arguments. That entire bundle of the past is the content of that word. And when you look at that person, you're looking through that image, through that word. You never actually see the living person who may be different today, who is changing, who is not the static image you hold in your mind. And look at what happens in the wider world. When you use the word my country, or you see the symbol of the flag, look at the enormous emotional content. It is a bundle of pride, of history, of prejudice, of us against them. When you use a word like communist or capitalist or Christian or Muslim, notice the intonation, the quality, the vast reservoir of conditioning, of propaganda, of fear and belief that is packed behind that single word. And when you say, I am an American, or I am an Indian, or I believe in God, or I don't believe in God, this entire vast network of words is the house in which the brain lives. It is the very structure of the I, the self. The I is that network of words, of memories, of symbols. I hope this interests you, because if it doesn't, if you are not actively investigating your own mind, then it is a lovely day outside, and these words are meaningless. The questioner asked how to negate the I, and we are seeing that the I is the structure of the past. So let's go back to our central point. Does one realize that one can never look at a thing, a living thing, a dead thing, a moving thing, without this immediate interference of the word? Can you look at a river, at that flowing, living water, without immediately calling it the Thames or the Ganges or the Mississippi? When you label it, you have already stopped seeing it, you have placed it in the category of your knowledge. But just to look at the moving water, it has a completely different quality, a different life. It is new, and you are new to it. Now, if we can see this with something simple like a tree or a river, can we apply this same observation to ourselves? Is there an observation of the movement of the self, that movement which we call anger or bitterness or jealousy or fear? Is there an observation of that feeling without the word? Are you following this? The moment you are jealous, the brain instantly labels it, I am jealous. That word, jealousy, is the past. It is the memory of all the other times you were jealous. It is the social condemnation of jealousy. It is the desire to not be jealous. It is the justification for it. The word itself is loaded with the entire history of that feeling. And it is that history which forms the observer, the me, who then says, I am jealous and I must not be, or I am justified in being jealous. This creates an immediate division between me, the observer, and jealousy, the observed. And in that division, there is conflict. But what happens if you just observe that rising reaction, that feeling of heat, of possession, of fear, without naming it, without bringing in the entire past, which is the word? Can you look at the woman or the man, your wife or your husband, without the past, without that word, my wife, which, as we saw, contains the tremendous content of all your shared history, the hurts, the images, the comfortable patterns? Can you look at her or at him as though for the first time? Please do this. Don't just listen to me. There is no point whatsoever in listening to me if you are not applying this, if you are not actively experimenting with your own consciousness. If you are your own teacher, your own guru, you are finding out for yourself. So, this is the question we are asking. Is there an observation of the whole movement of the self, which we have described both outwardly in the world war, division, greed, and inwardly fear, conflict, loneliness? Is there an observation of that without the past? Do you understand what I am talking about? Look, I am a man who has lived 87 years. A man who has lived that long has collected an enormous amount of experience, a vast collection of ideas, has met thousands of people, has seen the world change. There are all these past memories stored in the brain, throbbing away, active. Now, such a man is either an idiot, living completely in the past, constantly repeating his memories, his conclusions, his hurts, or that memory is there, but it is very selective. It is not the master. It is possible then to observe what is happening now in this moment without the observer, because the observer is the past. The observer is that 87 years of accumulated memory. Can there be an observation without that entire accumulation interfering? Am I making this clear? It is to observe one's own reactions as they arise without naming them, to see the flush of anger, just to observe it, not call it anger, to feel the tightening of fear, just to watch it, not label it fear. When you do observe in this way, what happens? Please go into it. I hope you are doing this and not just getting bored with the damn stuff. If you are actually doing it, you are asking a real question. When there is an observation that has no direction, no motive, because all motives come from the past, I want to get rid of this feeling. I want to hold on to that feeling when there is pure, choiceless observation, what takes place now, to find out what happens actually in that state of pure observation without motive. You must first do the opposite. You must inquire with that same clarity what takes place now in your ordinary life, when you are directing your reactions, when you are naming them, when you are bringing the past to bear upon the present. What happens when you do remember your reactions or give direction to them? The answer is immediate, isn't it? The moment you name a feeling, a division is created. There is I, the observer, the censor, the one who judges, and there is the thing, the feeling that is observed, the anger, the jealousy, the fear. The instant you say, I am angry, you have separated yourself from the anger. That I feel superior to the anger, or afraid of it, or justified in it, and in that very separation, conflict is born. The I says, I must not be angry, which is suppression, or I must control my anger, which is a battle, or why am I angry, which is analysis, all of which are forms of conflict. This is a constant, terrible wastage of energy. All our psychological energy is dissipated in this internal battle between the I who wants to be different and the what is that. It is observing all this rationalizing, this suppression, this arguing with ourselves. Why should I feel this? Why shouldn't I feel that? That is the wastage of energy. This is an absolute fact. Where there is division, there must inevitably be conflict, both outwardly and psychologically. This isn't a complex theory, it is a law. We see it so clearly in the outer world. When I call myself a British citizen, or an American, or a Hindu, or a Muslim, I have created a division between myself and you, who are a German, or a Pakistani, or an atheist. And in that division, we are willing to destroy thousands, perhaps millions of other human beings. We are willing to spend enormous, unimaginable sums of money on weapons, on armies, on propaganda, all to defend this psychological division, this I that has identified with a flag or a book. You are willing to do something truly terrible, all because your national pride or religious certainty, which is just some collective nonsense, dictates it. That outer conflict is the same identical movement as the inner conflict that says, I am the observer and I must control my anger. The I is the source of all division and therefore the source of all conflict. So, we are inquiring whether this conflict in the human mind, which is your mind, my mind, the human mind, this mind, which is in constant travail, in constant battle with itself, can ever end. It can end completely and totally only when the observer is not, and there is only observation. This means we must ask, is the observer, the I, the thinker, in any way different from the thing he observes, the thought? Look at it. Is the thinker different from the thought which he has created? We live with this assumption every day. We assume there is a permanent me, the thinker, and this me just has thoughts as if they fly in from somewhere else. The thinker says, I'm a Catholic, or I am a Protestant, or I am a Hindu, or I am a Democrat, or I am a totalitarian, or I am a capitalist. The thinker says that, but the thinker has created that thought. The thinker has created the Democrat, the Republican, the far left, the far right, the center. The thinker has done that. So, is the thinker different from his thoughts? Oh, come on, sir. This is so simple when you look at it directly. Obviously not. The thought is the thinker. The bundle of thoughts is the thinker. If you take away all the thoughts, all the beliefs, the memories, the conclusions, the opinions, where is the thinker? He is not there, but we have divided it. We have created this separation because it gives us a sense of permanence, a sense of security, to believe there is a permanent I existing behind the flow of thinking. But let's look at another, perhaps more subtle question. Is the experiencer different from the experience? This is where we get caught, isn't it? I am glad now you're caught because we all want experiences. Our entire culture is based on it, seeking new experiences, more intense experiences. We want the experience of going to the moon, the experience of climbing the highest mountain, the experience of a dozen kinds of sex, the experience of meditation, the experience of going to Tirupati, a famous temple in India, and feeling that religious fervor. And ultimately, we want the supreme experience, the experience of God, of truth, of enlightenment. Now, we are asking, is the experiencer different from the experience he is seeking? For something to be an experience, the experiencer must be able to recognize it. Right. Otherwise, it is not an experience. If you have an experience, you must be able to say, that was bliss, or that was God, or that was a profound insight. How do you recognize it? You can only recognize it if you have already known it, if you have a memory of it, a picture of it, a description of it from a book or a teacher. You must have a pre-existing concept of what God is or bliss is in order to recognize it. Do you follow all this? I experience, let's say, a motor accident. That incident is recorded in the brain as unpleasant, as painful, the shock, the cost, the fear. It is recorded. That experience is now a memory, and that memory is the experiencer. That experiencer, which is the past, now either wants to avoid future incidents of that kind, or if he is prone to accidents, he may even unconsciously invite them. Now, apply this to the spiritual. I want to experience God, but I have invented God. I have been conditioned to a particular tradition, which is the past. If I am a Christian, I will have a vision of the Virgin Mary or Christ. If I was a Buddhist, I would have an experience of various types of Buddhist consciousness. If I am a Hindu, I will see Krishna or Shiva. Why? Because my conditioning, which is the past, projects the thing it wants to experience. I have projected that, and therefore I experience that. So the experiencer is the experience. The I that is seeking is the very thing it is seeking. We all want experiences because we hope they will bring about more knowledge, more clarity, more something for the me. But if the experiencer is the experience, then nothing new is happening at all. The mind is just reinforcing its own conditioning, its own past. It is caught in a loop, projecting and reabsorbing its own projections and calling it growth. When a mind truly, deeply sees this, sees the utter futility of seeking experience, it stops seeking. It no longer wants any experience, high or low, worldly or so-called spiritual. What, then, is the state of such a mind? Only such a mind that is not demanding, not expecting, not challenging, is absolutely clear. It requires no challenge from the outside because it is no longer in a state of conflict. So we return to the central question. Is there pure observation of the movement of the self? An observation where the self is not different from the observer, where there is only observation without the past, which is the observer, the thinker, the experiencer interfering with that observation. So what happens when the past does interfere, as it does in nearly every moment of our lives? That is, when the past memories, the past conclusions, the past herds and formulas interfere with the observation of what is, there is an immediate and terrible wastage of energy. This is the state we live in. It is the energy of conflict, the energy spent in denying what is, in suppressing it, in trying to rationalize it, or in the desperate attempt to escape from it into some future ideal. Look at your own life. You feel fear, and immediately the mind says, I must not be afraid. So you spend your energy fighting the fear, which only gives it more strength. You feel envy, and the mind says, that is a terrible sin. So you suppress it, you cover it with righteous words, but that envy is still there, boiling underneath, consuming your energy. You are lonely, and the mind immediately seeks an escape through entertainment, through a relationship, through a crowd, through the endless scrolling on a device, all of which is a flight from the fact of loneliness. And this flight, this avoidance, is a colossal drain of your life. This is the conflict we have accepted as normal. It is the I, the observer, the past, in a constant, futile battle with its own projections, which it calls the present. This is the very heart of our modern anxiety, this constant self-improvement cycle, which is just the I trying to fix itself. We download apps to manage our anxiety. We read books on how to be happy. We attend seminars to become better, all of which is the past, an idea of better trying to operate on the present. This is the me, the thinker, wasting its entire vitality in a civil war against its own thoughts, a war that can never, ever be won. The very act of rationalizing I am angry because is a wastage of energy, an avoidance of the simple, unadulterated fact of anger. The energy is scattered, dissipated in this useless friction. Now we must ask the real question: what happens when there is observation without the past? When there is an observation in which the observer, the sensor, the thinker, the experiencer is entirely absent? What happens when all that energy which was previously scattered in conflict, suppression, denial, and escape is no longer wasted? It means all of that energy is brought into being. It is no longer fragmented. It is a total holistic attention when you observe your anger, your fear, or your loneliness without a single word of the past, without naming it, without judging it, without any motive to change it or get rid of it, which is to observe without the observer, then all of your energy is present in that observation. It is an immense, coherent, and undivided attention. It is like a great quiet fire, a tremendous light that is completely still. And in that light, in the flame of that total observation, the thing which is observed is dispelled. This is not a trick, and it is not a reward. It is a simple fact. It is not that you, the observer, have done something to the anger. It is not that you have heroically overcome the fear. The you who overcomes is still the I playing a game. No, it is that the anger or the fear is the I. The I is not separate from its qualities. The I is its qualities. The I is the anger, is the fear, is the loneliness. And when this total attention, this silent, non-fragmented energy is present, the I, that movement of the past, cannot sustain itself. In the light of pure observation, the I, which is the very structure of conflict and division, dissolves. The division between the observer and the observed is the source of the problem, and in this total attention, that division is gone. And when the division is gone, the conflict is gone. The anger may arise, but it is seen so completely that it burns itself out in that very instant, leaving no residue, no memory, no scar upon the mind. Therefore, you see, we have come back to your original question, but we have answered it not by finding a how, but by seeing the truth of the problem itself. You asked, how does one negate the I without suppression or denial or conflict? The answer is, you don't. The you is the problem. The you is the conflict. Any action taken by the you to negate the I is just the I strengthening itself in a different, more subtle form. So, there is no suppression of the self. There is no denial of the self. There is no battle with the self. There is only clarity of observation. An observation without choice, without direction, without the past. This clarity of observation, which is the flowering of this total unfragmented energy, is the greatest form of intelligence. It is not the intelligence of the clever brain that can argue, that can accumulate knowledge, that can invent new technologies or write philosophical books. That is the intelligence of the past, the intelligence of memory and thought. This is a different quality of intelligence altogether. It is the intelligence of the present, an intelligence that is silent, that is not personal, that is not yours or mine. It is the positive state that flowers naturally, effortlessly. When the negative, which is the entire structure of the I, the thinker, the observer, is understood, it is understood not through analysis, but by seeing it as it is in a flash of perception. It is simply the clarity of observation, a perception that is not fragmented by the past. And that clarity, that simple, choiceless light, that is the greatest and perhaps the only form of intelligence.